Okay, we had already, just a little while ago, we had talked about how you conjugate AR, regular AR verbs. Now we're going to look at ERs and IRs, and they're classified as ER and IR because these verbs end that way. So these verbs are ER, aprender, beber, comprender, creer, and they're ER because they end in ER. Okay, that's why they're ER. And IRs are IRs because they end in IR. Okay. Okay, and you're going to do the exact same thing that you did with your AR verbs. When you conjugate ER and IR verbs, the first thing that you're going to want to do is take off the ending, but you keep your stems, which is everything that comes before the ending. So you're going to keep your comb, and you're going to keep your beeb, okay? And then what you add is, for ER verbs, it's an O, an ES, an E, EMOS, an EIS, an EN, okay? And for IRs, you add an O, an ES, an E, an IMOS, an IS, an EN, or EN. And you'll notice the only place that ERs and IRs differ is right here, is with nosotros and vosotros. That's the only place that they differ. Okay? And then they give you bear. Bear is an ER verb. It's a little bit irregular. It's irregular in the yo. And it's only irregular in the yo because it keeps a little bit of its ending. It keeps that E. That's the only thing that makes it irregular. And the fact that it doesn't have the accent mark in vosotros. So otherwise, so we're just going to, so it's minorly irregular, I guess, is what you would say. So keeping that E and then not having an accent mark is what makes it irregular. Okay, so let's do some practice with these. Okay, I don't even think I'm going to be able to stick it on here. Maybe, let's see. Okay, with a little bit of finagling, I got it on here. So what we want to do in this first one is complete each statement or question with the correct present tense form of the logical verb from the list. So we've got creer, to believe, comprender, to understand, leer, to read, aprender, to learn, beber, to drink, comer, to eat, vender, to sell, and ver, to see. So mis amigos blank un sándwich en la cafetería todos los días. Probably comer. Okay, so if I put comer in here. All right, then what I want to do is figure out who is it that's doing the eating. It's my friends, which is the same thing as ellos. So if I go back up here and I put in comer, I'm going to get rid of my ending. And I want to pick the ending. It's an ER verb. I want to pick the ending that matches ellos. So if I go over here and I scroll down to ellos, it's an en. So that's what I would put here, comen. Okay. Yo blank muchos libros para mi clase de literatura, probably leer, right, to read. Okay. Who's doing the reading? I am. So we want the ending that matches yo. I put my leer back in there. I'm going to get rid of the ending and what matches yo. If it's an ER verb, I'm looking in here, it's an O. It's going to be like comer. Mis amigos y yo blank que Marta es de Venezuela. We believe that she's from Venezuela. That would be creer. Okay. All right. And so then who believes that? My friends and I, which is the same thing as nosotros. So if I get rid of that ER for nosotros, I would have EMOS, creemos. Blank tú cuando la profesora habla español, probably do you understand, which would be comprender, comprender. Okay. And who is it that understands? That would be you. If it's a question, you're going to find your subject after the verb. If it's a statement, you're going to find it before. Okay, I'm still going to get rid of my ER, and if I look down here, this is an ER verb, so there's you, and then I'm going to pick an ES. Comprendes. Okay, Ramiro blank a bailar el tango. He learns how to dance the tango, or yeah. So aprender. Okay, who is it that's learning? It's Ramiro, which is the same thing as he. Okay, and for he, if you go down here, here's he, it's an E that you add on the end. We would write aprende. Yo no blank la televisión por la noche. The person it's probably going to be watching, the person who's doing the watching is I. And so the verb that I put in here is ver. Okay, ver is irregular in that it keeps that E, but I'm still going to add an O to the end. Veo. Blank tú muchas refrescos. Tú is the subject. So remember, your subject comes after the verb in a question. If we're talking about soft drinks, it's probably drinking, which is beber. Okay, so I'm going to take the ending off, and I'm going to add the ending that matches to, which happens to be an ES. Bebes. Juanito blank su coche porque es viejo. Okay, so who's doing this is Juanito, and if it's old, he probably sold it, which would be vender. Juanito is the same thing as él, so if I take this off for él, I would put an E, vende. Usted blank el periódico local, no? Okay, so that's going to be usted is the subject, and if we're talking about the newspaper, it's probably leer. I'm going to take the ending off, and for usted, if I scroll over here, it's just an E, lee. Here, Maria would be my subject because she's before the verb, before the blank where the verb is going to go. So Maria blank que mañana hay examen de historia. She thinks that there's a history test, which would be creer. Okay, I take my ending off. Maria is the same thing as ella, and I would add an E, cree. Okay, so let's go over here. These are my, and I think I've clicked out of my directions trying to get everything on here. But anyway, we're supposed to choose the spelling that matches up. So it says, los estudiantes write poems in literature class. Escriben, los estudiantes poemas en la clase de literatura. My subject are the students, which is the same thing as ellos. Okay, so if I look down here, Ellos would be, for an IR verb is an EN, so escriben is going to be the answer. Okay. Tus padres blank en Colorado. The subject are your parents. And even though it's got a tus in there, tus without an accent isn't you, it's your. So the subject or the parents are they. Okay. So ellos for vivir is viven. Okay. The subject here is Juan, which is the same thing as él. Okay. And so the ending that I would need would be an E, and it would be asiste, well, they're all E, and it's going to be asiste because that's to attend, so he attends class on Mondays. Okay, this time it's la biblioteca, and remember there's no it in Spanish. You think of everything as a he and a she, so you wouldn't really change it to she, but that's what you would be thinking. Ella. So the library opens a las 8 de la mañana. So which spelling matches ella? So if I scroll down here to ella and it's an IR verb, it's an E. So then I want this one. Okay. Here my subject is yo. Yo no blank muchas cartas. I don't receive a lot of letters, so that would be recibo because all of them are no, they're all conjugated correctly. Mis amigos y yo blank muchas composiciones para la clase de inglés. Probably be right. And mis amigos y yo is the same thing as nosotros. And that's why everything is in the IMOS form. Okay, blank a tus padres este fin de semana. Okay, so it's asking if you're going to do something to your parents. So it's asking if you're going to maybe write them. Okay, ellos blank la cafetería temprano. They open the cafeteria. Abren. Ellos blank comer a las 8. Deciden. They decide to eat at 8. And yo no blank a clase los viernes. Yo no asisto. I don't attend.